Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new League of Legends video. It is that time once again to take a look at what the best champions are currently as of patch 7.9, or in other words, the big mid-season patch. This obviously has been a very big patch, so naturally the champions that are currently very strong for the most part are different, but at the same time there are going to be some familiar faces. So as usual, if you guys end up enjoying this type of video and you want me to continue doing it, let me know by simply hitting that like button. And as usual, this video will be made in collaboration with ProGuides, a very good website that tries to improve your overall League of Legends gameplay knowledge and just mechanics. ProGuides has also released a completely new way of using their feature Genius, which allows you to connect to a challenger player anytime. I highly recommend trying out the new feature. I'll have a link to them down below in the description that you can check it out and try them out for free, so I highly recommend trying them out at least. But without much further ado, let's get right into the best champions as of patch 7.9, the mid-season patch. So I'm going to start things off by talking about Maokai. Now, Maokai, ever since the rework, was at first seeming to be like almost a joke champion, but Riot has improved him ever since, and he came out to be, honestly, not a bad champion, but not probably in the way you'd expect. Now, most people obviously expected Maokai to continue being a successful tank top laner, right? Being a great disruptor, a great initiator, some great teamfight presence. Unfortunately, that's not really the case anymore, but now he's instead moved all the way down to the bot lane and maybe the jungle. Now for this video, I'll be talking more about Maokai's support because, well, honestly, it's actually pretty damn decent. All you really do in the bot lane is just spam the hell out of the bushes with your saplings. I mean, your job isn't to CS. All you do is take full control of that full area and you're gonna be good to go. It puts a lot of pressure on the enemy ADC and the support. It relieves a lot of pressure for your ADC knowing that the bot lane bushes are completely in your control, and you honestly have some pretty free wards just throwing those saplings into the brushes, the tri-bush, the one in the river, which will also of course naturally scout the jungler. I mean, all in all, he doesn't really have to do a lot of damage. He still provides a CC. His ultimate is great when it comes to ganking the bot lane, as it does cover the full lane perfectly. So if your jungler's coming in, throw that bad boy down and watch them run. I mean, they literally have no other option than to run. So all in all, I have to say Maokai's support, you might want to watch out for it or even pick it up if you're a support player. It's pretty damn deadly. But speaking of Maokai's support, here's the build that I recommend. Now you probably want to go Thunderlords just because you are a support, so you want to try getting that extra bit of burst damage going on in the lane so you can actually go for kills and have more just essential pressure down there. And for items, you definitely want to go for something like Redemption, Locket of the Arm, and Solari, just again, more or less standard support items. But let's move along the list and next talk about another support champion, the one that we've been talking about for several patches but is still up there in terms of how strong she is, Lulu. So before she got really popular because she was essentially a pretty easy counter when it comes to dealing with the popular assassins, but the assassin meta is slowly dying off. But little do you know, I mean, Lulu is still actually quite strong, and the reason for that is quite simple. She still provides exactly what she did prior to. She still has great lane pressure, she has great engage if you want to actually follow up with something, with her ultimate, the slow, with her Q, of course, the being a slow as well. She has great disengage, she's got good protection, and she can still shut down anyone trying to go onto your backline, like maybe a top lane bruiser, and focus them instead. She just really offers a lot for a support champion. I mean, I've talked about Lulu for several of these videos in a row now, so I don't feel like there's a whole lot more to say about her, so I'm assuming you guys know exactly why she's good. At the moment, she's still very good. She hasn't received any nerfs, so you might want to watch out for her, ban her, or pick her up. But here's the recommended build for Lulu. Windspeaker's Blessing is without question your keystone of choice because it just suits her so perfectly well. For your items, Redemption, things like maybe Ardent Sensor, and just general support items, maybe like Locket as well, are all very successful on her. And make sure you max your E first, followed by your W, and then your Q, maybe Q second if you really want to be a bit more aggressive. But let's stay down in the bot lane for just one more champion because I actually want to talk about Draven. Ever since a lot of the AD items got changed and reworked even, I mean, there has been a decent amount of change in what ADCs are currently popular. I mean, most of them are still the same, but there's also been some new faces rising to the top. And one of those new faces is, without question, Draven, because there's a build on him that is actually quite damn strong. I mean, what does he provide? I mean, he obviously has an insane amount of damage in the laning phase. He actually scales decently okay, but the main thing is the fact that he does just absolutely shit stomp on most ADC champions other than potentially Caitlyn. And he's also one of those champions that I'm sure a lot of people don't really understand how much damage he can do and when, so it's very easy to think you can beat him, and then suddenly he's standing in one spot, tossing those axes at you, and suddenly you're probably dead. But all of that on top of the specific build that you run on him just makes Draven a fantastic champion at the very moment, so I highly recommend picking him up. But speaking of items, let's take a quick look at the build that you want to do when playing Draven. So Fervor of Battle is your keystone of choice, but your your items is where things get really spicy. So here you're gonna go for Death's Dance, things like a Phantom Dancer, Infinity Edge, and Guardian's Angel. Those items are without question the core items. They're all fantastic. They deal a lot of damage, and Draven with the first item of Death's Dance plus Phantom Dancer is insanely difficult to kill. The final item there being the BF Sword means that you can most likely turn that into a Bloodthirster for extra lifesteal just so you're that much more difficult to kill, plus the shield. But let's move our way over to the jungle because there's definitely a few champions to talk about here, the first of which being without question Sejuani. Now of the 3 champions reworked, I mean Sejuani probably is the best of the 3. I mean she's insanely strong, she can be played extremely successful in the jungle, she has an insane amount of damage, great CC, her aura for melee champions is kind of overpowered honestly, and on top of this she can be played as a support champion as well to about the same success, if not maybe even better. All in all, I mean Sejuani is a champion that you really want to watch out for and someone I highly recommend banning out almost every single time. You don't want to risk facing her, she does way too much damage and I mean she's just too good. There really isn't a lot more to say about this, I mean just ban her out, don't risk playing against her. If you can get her on your team then kudos to you. That's about all you have to know. But in case you happen to somehow get her through the banning phase and actually pick her up for yourself as a jungler, then here's your build. Colossus is going to be your keystone of choice because it just gives you the tankiness that you need to properly engage most of the team fights. You want to go a relatively tanky build path, maybe something like the red smite or the blue smite, going for the Cinder Hulk. You can even go the AP if you really want to, and then after that you'll go for something like Iceborne, maybe even something like Abyssal Scepter. It just kind of depends on the enemy team that you're facing. Even maybe going for Gargoyle Stoneplay could be pretty good as well. Warmogs, again, just depends on what you're facing. I just highly recommend getting Cinder Hulk almost all of the time. But next up in the jungle, we also have to talk about Graves. Now, I actually feel like Graves is pretty strong once again, and that's all because of the changes to Death's Dance. I feel like this, with his just overall kit and Phantom Dancer, kind of similar to Draven, makes Graves once again a top tier jungler. He was actually falling off the radar and off my personal radar as well, and I wasn't considering him to be all that good prior to this patch, but the second it came in, the second the items and the synergy became apparent with Graves, I have to say the champion is once again back to the top, being among the best jungle champions to play at the very moment. Normally you want to play Graves pretty aggressively for the first few levels and go off for those early ganks as well, maybe level 3 or even 4, and if they're successful and if you get a little bit of a snowball going, you're gonna snowball insanely hard as this champion is especially going this build path. It's just extremely strong, it works very well, and I highly recommend trying it out and playing it. So with all that being said, let's take a look at what you want to run when playing Graves. Like I said, going for the Phantom Dancer and the Death's Dance is a great combo. It gives you a lot of extra damage with the warrior buffs as well. The new Guardian's Angel giving you that extra AD plus armor and obviously the ability to revive, which just suits Graves perfectly, is also very strong. You can even throw in a Black Cleaver if you really want to instead of the Mercurial Scimitar, and you're just gonna be an absolute beast walking around destroying anyone's face while probably not even dying yourself. But the last champion I want to talk about in the jungle is going to be Ivern. This guy has not yet been nerfed, has not yet been touched. He's still pretty much the exact same stupid champion that he is. Extremely obnoxious to face, still scales surprisingly well, gives his ADCs, which are currently very strong by the way, a lot of shields. His Daisy is just obnoxious. I mean, he's still the same champion. I've talked about him every single video for the past like 3 or 4 of these videos. He hasn't been nerfed whatsoever. He's still very strong. You still want to play him. Again, he is a champion that is kind of unique. So if you haven't really picked him up by now, I might not recommend playing him. Just ban him out and just don't even bother with him at all, because he is a very different jungle champion, right? He does take a lot of games to truly understand how to play him properly. If you do put those games in, I promise you'll get a lot in return, but it will take a lot of practice. Regardless though, here's the recommended build path. Again, for items, you want to still go the supporty type of items, maybe a Fiends, maybe a Redemption and things like that. You still want to go Windspeaker's Blessing for your keystone, and other than that, everything else should be self-explanatory. And the final champion I want to talk about is going to be Kassadin over in the mid lane. Now, the assassin meta, like I said, is slowly dying off, so champions like Zed, maybe even Talon, slowly falling off. Kassadin is the great answer to the current meta being a lot of AP mid lane mages. Kassadin is great against them, you can just completely run them down late game, and once he gets level 16, his level 3 ultimate has literally a 1-second cooldown, so you'll be just teleporting around the map, being very hard to stop while also dealing a lot of damage with your Rod of Ages fully stacked, your Lich Bane, and your other items of course. Just a very strong champion that fits the meta very well at the moment, and I highly recommend playing him. Here's the recommended build as well. You want to go Flash Teleport by the way, you also want to go Deathfire Touch because it makes your laning phase just a bit better. But other than that, your runes kind of depend on what you're facing, whether you go full MR, some CDR in the blues as well, or whatever. And your abilities, you want to master your Q first, followed by E, followed by W. Now before I end off the video, there are going to be a couple of honorable mentions, the first of which is going to be Yasuo. Now Yasuo top lane and maybe even mid lane is making a return. I feel like he's going to become once again a top tier champion and be considered very, very OP. Infinity Edge got a buff. The core item on Yasuo, it just perfectly fits him as well, and it makes Yasuo just that much better. You're able to get that power spike much sooner, which is actually a pretty big deal on him, because once he gets the Phantom Dancer plus the IE, or if you go for Static Shift plus IE, your damage is going to be by far probably the highest in the game, assuming you get it at a decent time. Now you're getting it sooner, which means your power spike is sooner as well, which means you'll be killing people that much better. There's also two ADCs I want to bring to light, the first of which being Lucian, still very strong. You can go several build paths now. If you want to go for the Borg Black Cleaver, you can definitely do that. If you want to go for Crit Lucian, you can also do that. He's still good, still very strong. You definitely want to watch out for him. Arguably the top ADC at the very moment, next to Draven, and of course, Caitlyn. Caitlyn is good because her laning phase is very, very strong. She still actually scales quite well, and she just fits the meta well. A lot of CC supports at the very moment that are popular, which makes her traps insanely strong as well. So Caitlyn and Lucian and Draven, probably the best 3 ADCs. But either way guys, that is about it for this video. There you have it, the best champions to currently play for patch 7.9, the mid-season patch. If you enjoyed this video, then let me know by hitting that like button. Let me know what you think about this current patch and what champions you think are currently very strong or very OP. But either way, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video. Peace.